Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. It's an online platform for science and engineering professionals. You can find out about it at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Today, my guest is Eric Oliver. He's a professional engineer and LEED expert. What is LEED? I have no clue, but I'm going to find out about it from him. He founded his company, Earthwide LLC, to provide energy and sustainability consulting services. He's also president-elect of the Association of Energy Engineers. I'm keen to learn more about his role with AEE, his journey to entrepreneurship, and the ways in which public speaking has benefited him. Welcome to Teach the Geek interviews, Eric.
Thank you so much.
So from the bit of research I did on you, I saw that you got a degree in architecture. What was the motivation to get that degree?
So I've always been fascinated with buildings, and so my undergraduate degree was in architecture. I went to MIT, so I was also taking a lot of engineering classes as well. And when I completed my architecture degree, my first job out of college was with a company called Energy Investment up in Boston, where I was doing energy efficient lighting upgrades. And when I learned about energy conservation, I became very passionate about it. Not only how it saves energy, but also saves the environment. And I decided to dedicate my career to energy conservation.
Wow. So out of curiosity, when you graduate with a degree in architecture, is going into, I guess, the energy industry, is that typical?
No. I was. It was in 1990, so there was a recession going on, and there weren't very many jobs available. But I did take a lot of engineering classes, and I actually ended up going back and getting a master's degree in mechanical engineering after working for a couple of years. But once I started learning about energy conservation, that's why I wanted to take a job in it and make that my career.
Okay, so you got a degree in architecture, you worked for a couple of years, and then you got a master's in mechanical engineering. So, okay,
right.
That's interesting. All right. You don't typically hear that. So, is the reason you got a master's in mechanical engineering because of the lack of jobs in architecture?
No, it was because I wanted to learn more about the energy side of buildings and how buildings operate, and finding ways to reduce energy consumption. So I wanted to learn more about that aspect of buildings, and recognizing that that's what I wanted to do with my career.
Okay, got you. So I did mention the LEED. Do you pronounce it LEED, or do you actually you enunciate every letter?
It is LEED, and
Okay.
It's Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, and that's what LEED stands for. And it's a program where you apply a lot of different aspects of environmental design and energy efficient design to buildings. And if you meet certain criteria, then you can say that building is LEED certified.
Okay, so what's the benefit of a builder to make their building LEED certified?
A lot of benefits. Not only is it going to use less energy and therefore have lower costs than a regular building, but the LEED buildings are typically healthier. They're nicer places to work. They have better light. They have cleaner air, and are nicer buildings. So there are a lot of benefits and not just saving energy and reducing energy costs.
Okay, are there more upfront costs to building a LEED building as opposed to a non-LEED building?
Typically, but it's typically not much. What they found is that when they've been doing LEED buildings for about 20 years, and they found that the premium is somewhere around 5%. That's going to be in that range. In some cases, if you do it smartly, the premium could be lower. It could end up with a lower cost for the building. Say, for example, if you put in energy efficient lights, those lights might cost more, but the cooling system could be downsized because energy efficient lights give off less heat. So you could spend more on the lights and less on your large cooling system, and overall the costs are lower. So designers have found ways to make it so that it actually costs the same or less to design a building to LEED specifics and have it be a green, energy efficient, environmentally friendly building.
Okay. And when it comes to becoming LEED certified like yourself, is there a course you got to take? Is there an exam? Is it another degree you have to get? How does that work?
It's an exam, yes. So people can become LEED accredited. The program is run by the U.S. Green Buildings Council, and you can take courses and trainings and then take an exam. And if you pass the exam and you have a certain number of years of experience in doing and working on LEED projects, then you get LEED accredited, and that gives you the ability to certify buildings.
Okay. Do you have to have some sort of background to be able to take this LEED exam?
You have to have a certain number of years of experience, and you have to have participated on some LEED projects with other people in other companies before you can take the exam. But they're not very strict about how many years of experience you need to have. You just need to have some experience with LEED projects before you can take the exam and get accredited.
Okay, and you don't have to have a certain degree to be able to take the LEED exam?
Nope.
Okay,
Nope.
interesting. Where did I guess the standards for LEED, where did they come from?
They were developed by the U.S. Green Building Council, which is
Okay.
a national organization based in Washington, D.C. But the stakeholders come from all different aspects of the building industry: developers, designers, engineers, contractors, who essentially help to develop all of this criteria that says what is a green building, what does that mean, and you don't have to meet all of the criteria; you just need to meet certain percentages of the criteria.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, is it possible to meet all 100%?
I don't think any projects have ever met 100%. They have different levels of LEED certification. They have silver, gold, and platinum, and so by meeting certain criteria, certain numbers of points, you get to either silver, gold, or platinum. Platinum is the highest level. There are a lot of buildings that have met that level, but it doesn't mean you've met all of the criteria. It just means you've met a high percentage of criteria.
Okay. Are there other standards out there that are perhaps in competition with LEED, or is LEED pretty much the lone dog that does this kind of thing?
No, there are plenty of other programs out. There's a new one called WELL, which is more geared towards WELL, more geared towards the environmental aspects of buildings. There's Green Globes, there's Energy Star. There are a lot of other programs out there that help to determine whether or not a building that is being designed is green.
Okay. I mean, you just picked LEED because you thought it was the best one of all of them?
It was very early on. It was the only one. So I started getting involved in LEED projects back in 2002, and back then it was the only major national program that was doing this.
Okay, got you. And then the standards that LEED has, do they change based on where you are, or are they the same no matter where you are in the world?
Yeah, there are some geographic criteria. There are some credits that are geographic. So if you're in a hot, wet, humid climate, then there are certain ways to get points. And if you're a very cold climate, there are other ways to get points. So there are regional credits that you can get that are specific to certain areas. So it's kind of a flexible program that allows you to gain credits by different ways.
Okay, got you. I think that's great. So
yeah,
because you're a certain place, you can still get to the platinum level, but even if you're in somewhere else where the terrain or the geography is completely different, you can still get to that platinum level. There's more than one way to skin a cat. I like that.
Exactly. There are long-term benefits of it. And, whatever the additional cost would be, pays for itself very quickly in reduced energy costs.
So why wouldn't any kind of builder not do something like LEED?
I don't know. That's, I mean, because my focus is mainly on the energy side of it and energy efficiency. And, I always ask, well, why wouldn't anybody do this? They might not have the upfront costs, but if they can finance it or find other ways to get projects done, pay for itself over time with the energy savings. But yeah, I've always wondered why everybody doesn't do it.
Interesting. So, I also mentioned in the intro that you started a business called Earthwide LLC. So what is the building, or the business? What is the business? What kind of services do you provide with that business?
So primarily energy master planning. So I help organizations and building owners to put together long-term strategies for reducing energy consumption in their buildings. It starts with an energy audit where I go into buildings and I look for anything and everything that can save energy. And I put costs and savings with it and provide a report that says, okay, here's what I recommend you do to this building to reduce energy costs. So this is actually my second company that I've owned. I owned a company called EMO Energy Solutions from 1998 to 2017 and sold that company. And so now Earthwide is my second company.
Okay.
Doing similar types of work.
So what type of work did EMO do?
Similar to that. So Earthwide is focused primarily on energy savings, but EMO, we did LEED certification in buildings. We did energy audits, energy modeling, a variety of different building services, commissioning and retro commissioning for a variety of different customers.
Okay.
Very similar type of work.
Okay. Got you. But so I guess you liked it so much, even after you sold it, you said, I'm gonna start it up again.
Yeah, I want to do it again. Yeah.
All right, got you. I understand. So I also mentioned in the intro that you're involved with the Association of Energy Engineers. What motivates you to get involved with them?
So that's a great organization. It's it's an international organization based in Atlanta with chapters all over the country. And when I first started my first company, EMO, back in 1998, I was asked to join the local chapter of the Association of Energy Engineers by a person named George Owens, who was the president of the chapter at the time. And I was just 29 years old. I didn't have a lot of experience. I wanted to meet a lot of people. I wanted to network and find ways to grow the business. And within a couple of years of joining the chapter, I was elected chapter president and state chapter president for 6 years, and then got involved in the national organization, which is where I am now. I was a national secretary last year, president-elect this year, and going to be president next year.
So as president, what type of things would you like to implement that currently, I guess, perhaps aren't implemented currently? Yeah, well, that aren't implemented now.
Well, I mean, one change I would like to see is I'd like to see a lot more women involved in engineering in general, but in the energy engineering industry. I would say about 20% or so of the members of the Association of Energy Engineers are women. I'd like to get more women involved. I know that there are a lot of engineers out there who could become part of the organization and part of the leadership. So that's one thing I would like to see. And I'd also like to see students in colleges become more active in the energy engineering industry. I learned about energy conservation after I graduated from college. If I had known when I was in college what I know now, I think I would have steered my career that way earlier.
I think a lot of people can say something like that, Eric. I mean, when you first come out of school, there's very little and yeah. when that's the case, you're kind of flying by the seat of your pants. But if you knew somebody, that was more experienced back then, I would tell you, being a part of industry organizations could be really helpful in advancing your career. I fully agree with that.
I feel very fortunate. I'm very passionate about energy conservation. I've been able to make a career out of it and teach a lot of people about it as well. So I feel very fortunate that I love what I do. I love what I've done with work.
So with the people who join AEE, what kind of backgrounds do they typically have?
I mean, most of them are engineers. They come from some kind of engineering background, but that's not a requirement by any necessity. An energy engineer is not necessarily someone with an engineering degree. It's just someone who is in the industry and wants to work to make buildings energy efficient. So you could be an architect, you could be an environmental consultant, you could be an engineer, facilities management. All of these different types of backgrounds can get you involved in the Association of Energy Engineers.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. And you all have annual conferences and stuff where you all get together and talk about energy.
Yeah, there's typically one big conference in September or October, and that's typically in Atlanta or Orlando. And then there are regional conferences. There's one coming up in 2 weeks in Seattle. There was one about a month ago in Cincinnati, and this year, for the first time, they'll be having an international conference in Dublin, Ireland. So it's a great way to get everybody of like-minded people together and discuss strategies and work and really learn a lot. So the conferences are a great thing.
So I'm assuming, and of course you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you're LEED certified. There's other people perhaps that are part of AEE that are LEED certified too, but maybe there's others that are WELL certified. And you mentioned WELL. You mentioned energy safe or space. Or
certified energy manager. So the Associated AEE also has other certifications that people can get. One is called the CEM, Certified Energy Manager. That's also very widely recognized across the industry. If you're a CEM, if you're a certified energy manager, then you know a lot about buildings, and so it almost carries as much weight as the PE, as the professional engineering certification. So AEE, and they have certified commissioning programs, they've certified carbon auditor programs, certified demand side management. So AEE has a lot of certification programs that can help people get recognized in the industry.
Is it similar to getting these certifications as getting the LEED, taking an exam?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. There are courses you can take and then take an exam, and if you pass the exam, then if you have the work qualifications, then you get certified.
Okay, nice. Well, Eric, I put this podcast together to talk to people like yourself, people that come from the STEM fields. But I think a lot of the times what people like us aren't known for is presenting things in front of other people. We're known for being technical geeks. We're known for the data. We're known for, putting graphs together. Put on tape, doing stuff in front of our computers. But we're not known as being the best at presenting that data in front of people, especially those who come from outside of our technical expertise. And it all started really with my own struggles in doing that, but I got better at it over time because I saw the benefit of it. If at all, when did you see the benefit of being able to present better in front of others?
Yeah, I mean, I started very early. So when I got involved with AEE and started my company, I was not only attending these conferences, but I was speaking at them. And I really enjoy speaking in front of people, particularly about energy conservation. And I think what makes it easy for me is that I'm very passionate about the subject, and so I can talk to it. And so I would say that it is a little frightening early on to get up in front of a crowd, and particularly some people that may be older than you or maybe more experienced than you. But it was a very big part of me going through my career and getting noticed and getting recognized and actually growing the company, was being up in front of people and talking about the subjects that I was very passionate about.
Well, kudos to you for seeing that early on, Eric. I definitely do not have that story at all. Speaking in front of people was something I was trying to avoid for as long as possible. I only started doing it out of necessity. I became a project leader at one of the companies I was at. So I had to give project status updates in front of management every month. But if that wasn't part of my job, then I'm not sure that speaking in front of others would have been something I was looking to do. Although now looking back on it, I'm really happy that I took that on. So it sounds like actually I shouldn't even assume this, but is speaking in front of people something you've always been good at? And if not, what did you do to get better at it?
I mean, I think I kind of always was. I'm definitely an extrovert, so I'm good. I like being around people. I like being around a lot of people, and I think that helps. I would say that I would say I probably have been just kind of natural at it. But I think that what people need to know is that if you're getting up and speaking in front of a crowd, they're there to see you and they're there to learn from you. And so if you can share even one thing with them that they take away that they didn't know before, then it was a successful presentation. And so, you don't need to nail everything, and not everything has to be perfect, but I think what might help people is if they realize that, okay, they're there to listen to you, you have something to share with them, and if they have a takeaway, then it was a success. So not everything has to go great. There's no reason to be nervous, but what makes it easier is if you are passionate about what you're talking about, then that comes through in your presentation, and people are impressed with what they see.
Yeah, I think you're right about that, being passionate about the topic that you're speaking of, because especially if you're speaking about something that perhaps you don't even agree with, that's going to be really difficult.
That's really difficult, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to convey any kind of excitement for something that you think is maybe even something that the company shouldn't be doing, or something that you just think is wrong. Yeah, I fully agree with that.
Yeah, when I'm giving presentations at these conferences, I always like to tell the audience that I want this to be more of a dialogue than a monologue. I encourage people in the audience to raise their hand and ask a question and have a conversation going, rather than just point to slides and talk what I was going to say. So I prefer dialogues rather than monologues when I'm public speaking and giving presentations.
It's funny you mentioned that, Eric. So less than a week ago, I was at an event and there were presenters. And that first presenter, it definitely was no dialogue. It absolutely was a monologue. There was a lot of slides. There were a lot of words on the slides, and you read the slides. So it's very difficult to even look at the audience while you're reading slides. Your eyes can only look at one thing at a time. So he chose to look at the slides because that's what he was reading. And so I was reading the slides too. I was just thinking to myself, man, I could have read these slides at my own leisure. You should have just sent this to me by email. That's
probably the worst thing you can do is just put up slides and read off of them, especially if slides are nothing but words. I like to add a lot of images and photos and graphics to slides. And the slides should be up there for something the audience to look at, but not read. So typically when I put slides up, it'll be an image, a photo, a graphic, chart, table with maybe a few small bullet points, but then I won't read the bullet points. I'll describe the image, the chart, the photo.
Well, you know exactly what you're doing, Eric. And I think that when you do it like that, it helps with the presenter. They don't have that crutch of reading the slides because there's very little to read because there's not a whole lot of words on the slide. But then also the people in the audience, they're not going to read the slides. They're actually going to either listen to what you have to say or they're going to ignore you. You've basically you've increased your odds of them listening. So I think that's smart by having images and very little text on slides. I'm a firm believer in that as well.
Yeah.
When it comes to go ahead.
I was going to say that there are some presentations that I've given several times, And but they're always different. You know, every time I give it, it's different. I say different things. I provide different case studies and anecdotes depending on what the audience comes back to me with or questions they have. So so slides should be flexible. Yeah,
no question. When it comes to the presentations that you give, Eric, do you have a process for putting them together? And if so, what is it?
I typically do. I mean, I go through when I have a topic that I'm speaking on, say the topic is the International Energy Code. What I'll do is I'll read through the entire code, and then I'll come up in my mind and say, okay, what would I want to see if someone was giving me this presentation? What would I want them to tell me? And then that's how I describe, okay, I would want them to explain this chart more. I want to explain this table more. So then that's what I do. I step in the shoes of the audience. And I say, okay, what would they want to see in this topic? And then I design the presentation based on that.
Yeah, and when you do that, it forces you to think about what could be engaging to these people. I mean, you mentioned, right, at least with your example, it's you had to read a code, and if you want to get up in front of people,
it doesn't get any drier than that. So.
Section A, part 2, subsection 4. Says
how do you give a 2-hour presentation on a code and keep the audience from sleeping?
Yeah, you hear a bunch of snoring, you know you went off the wrong path.
Yep.
Yeah. So when it comes to also with the presentations that you do you ever get nervous before them? And if so, how do you deal with your nerves?
Sometimes I do, especially if it's a topic that I've never done a presentation on before. So, you know, the first thing I do to calm my nerves are breathing exercises. Like this, you may have heard that before, just a short breath in and a long breath out. And then, I typically practice every presentation I give at least 2 or 3 times the day before, go through the slides, talk the presentation in my mind, come up with some stories and anecdotes. You know, the stories and anecdotes and personal experience definitely enhance any presentation. So anything you can come up with that is personal. So I come up with stories, things that I'm going to fill in gaps with during the presentation, and that helps.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of stories now. But when I first started giving presentations, it didn't even occur to me, especially if you're giving a more technical presentation, to incorporate stories. But it's so important, especially if you're talking to a non-technical audience. You want to try to keep their attention with just, dry data and technical jargon. Good luck. It's gonna be
it's a challenge sometimes, because I remember I've been giving courses sometimes to an audience that was half of them were architects and half of them were engineers. And, I have an architecture and engineering background, so I like to say I'm bilingual. but to be able to talk architect and talk engineer is definitely a skill, and be able to have them understand what you're saying. So that you have to learn how to talk to non-technical and technical people. I think one of my strengths is that I can explain very technical subjects in a very non-technical manner, and I think that helps.
Oh, no question. I'm sure the people that are non-technical, your audiences, will thank you for that, because God knows they probably sat through a number of technical presentations where people weren't all that skilled in that, and they ended up looking at their phones, maybe staring up into space, falling asleep. And if you're one of those presenters that looks at their slides, if you were to just look up once in a while, you'll see those people with their heads nodded. They're not praying. They're fully out. You see the people on their phones,
What helps is that in certain organizations where I've given presentations, they've had feedback surveys at the end, and they've shared a lot of them with me, and that helps, feedback. And it's funny, sometimes in some of these presentations, someone will say presentation was too technical, and another person will say it wasn't technical enough. but getting feedback from the audience in some of these surveys helps a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that's always going to be the case with feedback. You very well may get contradictory feedback, and then what the hell do you do with that? It's a learning process for sure. So if you had to give one tip to anyone who is listening to this conversation right now on how they can become more effective in communicating with others, what would it be?
I would say learn a lot about what you're talking about, and do some research. Go through websites, see some case studies. So the more you learn about a topic that you're going to be talking about, the more you'll be able to answer questions and talk about subjects in a way that, if your audience comes out with just one thing that they didn't know before, then it was a success. So just keep that in mind, is that you don't have to, they don't have to learn everything that you're teaching, just one positive thing, and they'll be happy.
Yeah, I think you're right. And and depending on the number of times you speak on a certain subject, you may very well get questions afterwards that come up, in the various presentations, and you should take note of that. Okay, this is something that people are actually interested in. So even if you don't know the answer to that question at that time, you can find out the answer so that for subsequent presentations, now you know that answer. So when people ask that question, you got an answer at the ready. I'm a big fan of learning. Absolutely.
Yeah, and if you get the audience involved, there have been presentations where I've learned something, that someone from the audience came up with a story or something, an experience that they had, and taught me something new. So it's beneficial to everybody to get the audience involved, rather than just getting up and talking in front of them.
Man, and that's why you have a dialogue as opposed to a monologue.
Absolutely. Dialogue instead of a monologue, exactly.
No question. This has been great talking to you, Eric. Thank you for being a guest. How can people get in touch with you?
So my website is earthwidellc.com. They can reach me. My email address is earthwidellc@gmail.com. And yeah, I would love to talk to people and share my experiences and share what I know about saving energy and saving the planet.
Excellent. Well, everyone, that marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson, founder of Teach the Geek. It's an online platform for science and engineering professionals, and you can learn more about it at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thanks, Eric.
Great. Thank you very much.